everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to talk about the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, its impact on Jews in France. I was born in 1941 in Nazi-occupied Paris. Nazis ruled in partnership with an anti-Jewish, pro-fascist French regime called Vichy. Vichy's harsh laws drove Jews out of the professions and targeted Jewish immigrant families like mine. As for the Nazis, they talked of resettling the Jews for labor, for war labor. In 1941, thousands of Jews and other so-called undesirables were arrested and thrown into Vichy concentration camps. In March 1942, more than 1,000 of these French Jews were loaded into a German sealed train and deported. In July 1942, a massive police raid in Paris imprisoned 13,000 immigrant Jews, men, women, and children in Veldiv, a sports arena. Among them were 4,000 children. Disoriented and stunned, they were all shipped to Eastern Europe. What was in store for them? No one knew. But breaking up families and deporting the children, that did not suggest resettlement for war labor. The Nazi resistance had learned of the Veldiv raid in advance and warned the Jewish community. Half of those on the arrest lists found refuge. Jewish survivors nervously weighed what to do. They passed on the word, save the children, by dispersing them. My mother was an activist, a member of the Immigrant Workers League, MOI, linked to the communists. Her husband was a prisoner in Germany. Seeking to protect me, she arranged through the MOI for me to be cared for in a suburb of Paris by a nanny, Madame Orquet. My nanny took big risks with her life as caring for Jewish children was illegal. A year later, the Nazis deported my mother and killed her, but the Jewish resistance assured my safety in the care of a farm family. For that story, please read my memoir, Holocaust to Resistance, published by Fernwood. In mid-October 1942, a couple of months after the Veldiv raid, the head of the MOI's Jewish section, Adam Roski, received alarming news from a Spanish comrade who had a job driving a truck for the German High Command. His duties took him to Poland, where he heard the Nazi officers talking about killing the Jewish deportees with poison gas. He saw confirmation in the city of Krakow, where thousands of corpses of gassed Jewish deportees had arrived by train. The resistance leaders in France anxiously debated how to respond. Warn the Jews? It would horrify and frighten them, and perhaps create panic and despair. But to keep silent would be irresponsible. Here's what Roski said, what he wrote in the resistance newspaper, J'accuse. The torturers, the brutes intend to burn and asphyxiate thousands of Jews deported from France. 11,000 bodies killed in this way have been brought by train to Poland. In December, Britain Allied powers were quoted on radio. 360,000 Jews have been killed in the Warsaw Ghetto. Their statement stressed that these are not isolated crimes of junior officers, but premeditated, elaborated, and organized plans. On April 30th, 1943, after an all-day underground meeting of the MOI, Weiss tuned into his shortwave radio to BBC London. For 6 days, the BBC said, the Jews of Warsaw Ghetto have resisted arm in hand against the assaults of Hitler's tanks. The Jews have organized and are fighting back. Weiss summoned his MOI comrades, and they crowded around the radio through the night, picking up scraps of news. By the first sign of dawn, they had the whole picture. It was an insurrection by the entire Warsaw Ghetto. Weiss recalls a report of the Jewish Bund received in June. It emphasized that the ghetto's leadership had used exemplary political unity and fraternity despite their political disagreements. The leaders were committed to left-wing ideas, despairing yet brimming with hope for a better world, united with everyone in battle against their murderers. The French resistance leaders saw the ghetto uprising as a major event in the war, an emblem of resistance for the Jewish people. It came at a turning point that brought hope. It was certainly a moral inspiration. Nazi armies in the East were in retreat, and in North Africa on the point of surrender. In France, large numbers of young people were rebelling against Vichy's plans for labor conscription for the Nazis, the STO. Yet, the conduct of the Allied forces in French North Africa sounded a warning for the resistance in France. The British and the US victors there had left in place the Vichy authorities, their anti-Jewish laws, and detention camps. Would this be the pattern of Allied liberation in France? The left-wing resistance in France had a different idea. To the greatest extent possible, the working people of France would themselves liberate the country through a revolutionary uprising. That would settle accounts with the Vichy criminals and open France's road to a better future. The Jewish resistance resolved to spread the news of the Warsaw Ghetto insurrection widely. Weiss drew the lessons in J'accuse. The Jews of France send greetings to their heroic Warsaw Ghetto brothers and sisters. The German carefully crafted a peace plan of total extermination of the Jews of Europe, but we will respond, following the example of our brothers and sisters of Warsaw, with our implacable will to defend our liberty and our lives. Take up arms. We will organize our defense and resist all effort to arrest and deport us. Join with the people of France. Fight the barbarians without mercy. Glory to our heroic brothers and sisters of Warsaw. This is the time of vengeance and punishment. It's the hour of liberation for our people and the hour of our immortal glory. The revolt in the Warsaw Ghetto motivated the Jewish underground cells in France and fighting organizations to fight and die rather than fall in the hands of the Nazi conquerors. Roski and his comrades formed a new organization, the UJRE, Jews United for Resistance and Mutual Aid. It combined the Jewish citizens and immigrants, the military and civilian resistance, seeking both to defeat the Nazis and to save the Jewish population. The task was to help the entire Jewish population to go underground, including the aged and small children. Most Jews left Paris and went to the unoccupied regions, such as the city of Lyon and the rural area of Auvergne in the south of France, where I was hidden. In the course of the resistance, the Jewish people in France joined with the broader population in a battle for liberation. Although there was an anti-Jewish current in France, the Nazis failed to win the population to this view. Most people did not consent, and many provided help for the Jews and others persecuted. Jewish survival depended heavily on the ties with non-Jewish population. Weiss's UJRE, the Union of Jews, worked together with groups in the Jewish mainstream and the Zionists and the non-Jews. They allied with anti-Nazi forces among the Catholics, the Protestants, and Muslims. While waging the armed struggle, they also stressed social service to the community. Many who helped were government employees in the schools, healthcare, and especially in social work, acting to undermine the policy of the pro-French Nazi authorities. When the Nazis were driven out in 1944, significant sectors of the country, including Paris, were in fact liberated by the resistance forces. 3/4 of the Jewish population survived, more than 200,000, along with even a higher percentage of the Jewish children, 70,000. After the war, the task was to reunite the Jewish community, to reconstruct their families. Survivors got in touch with organizations and church groups and individuals who had shielded their children. Some who had accepted children were not keen on returning them. That was the case with the farm family who had lovingly cared for me. My father returned from his prisoner camp in Germany with a war wound that was soon to take his life. During his last days, he came to retrieve me. I was unwilling to leave my farm family, and he had to wrench me from their grasp. I was then placed in the orphanages administered by the UJRE. Our counselors and educators had been active in the resistance. They introduced us to Judaism in a secular spirit. They educated us to recognize our heroes of the French resistance, and particularly of the Warsaw Ghetto. I still carry within me the spirit of the French resistance. At age 9, I landed in the United States, adopted by a Jewish American couple. They and their friends didn't speak about the war experience of the Jews, but they did celebrate the anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Today, we face the pandemic of the coronavirus. We see new heroes rising, such as the working people in the front lines of healthcare, such as the Cuban doctors working in more than 38 countries to save lives. Today, we face climate change that does not recognize borders. Today, we strive to aid the Palestinians in besieged Gaza, who now face COVID-19 alone. We must join with all who fight white supremacy, the racist creed of fascism. Racism is expressed in this coronavirus calamity where Blacks suffer most. We must unite for the coming generation, for a better future, in which we cherish our differences.
Please wrap.
That is the underlying lesson of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Thank you.